Hi, my name is Carrie-Lynn, and I used to attend and even work at Forest City Community Church in London, Ontario. Unfortunately, I was exposed to and became aware of some pretty messed up things happening there. I don't even know how to start a video like this. I don't want to make it, but I couldn't live with myself if I didn't and someone else got hurt. I've typed this up because reading it gives me a level of detachment that I need to get through making this video. I've also had a lawyer review the script to ensure I won't be sued, or rather that if I get sued, I'm protected. So my wording is very meticulous and I'm reading off of my screen. I'm just going to jump right in. I feel that Forest City is not a safe place for anyone, and here are just some of the reasons why. First, I wanted to start by talking about the way that they deal with sexual abuse claims. The first is my own story. After everything else that had happened to me, which I'll get to in a bit, I was being completely shut out from the church by the leadership. Nobody would meet with me, let alone stick up for me. And I was suddenly at home without a job, without a church, having lost most of my friends, and unable to leave my bed. Random things would get to me through others, and I continued to hear rumors that were being spread about me. However, the most disturbing rumor that I heard was being spread amongst staff was that I falsely accused a pastor of sexual abuse. I heard about this rumor weeks after it had apparently been going around. To be abundantly clear, I was not sexually abused, and I never said that I was. I still have no idea who started this rumor, but staff members spread this rumor, and not one person reached out to me to ask if I had actually said I was sexually abused or investigate the validity of the claim whatsoever. Now again, thank God I was not sexually abused, but the very first person who heard about this alleged claim should have reached out to confirm if I had said it. If I confirmed, they should have reported it and started an investigation because they had no idea if it was true or not. But the rumor, by the time it got around to me, wasn't even that I had accused a pastor of sexual abuse. It was that I falsely accused a pastor of sexual abuse. This alone shows what their response would be if anyone came forward with a sexual abuse claim, which is to label them a liar. This is terrifying. Sometime after I had left, someone left a Google review naming a staff member and saying that they were grooming children. Once again, this claim was not investigated at all. Due to the name on the account, which was not a full first and last name, the staff was not sure who it was. And rather than reply to the review saying something like, "This is a very serious accusation, and we would ask that you contact us at blah, blah, blah," they simply had the review removed, and the person who had been accused of grooming children said that people were funny. Once again, labeling someone a liar without a proper investigation and brushing it under the rug. These are just two instances that I know of. I have to wonder if there have been more. But knowing that a sexual abuse claim would be dealt with this way is enough for me to know without a doubt that nobody is safe there. If that's not enough, let me tell you a small piece of my story. I started attending Forest City in June of 2019 and immediately fell in love with it. I auditioned for the music team right away and poured myself into the community. Eventually, I was interested in working there. I met with a leader. Moving forward, I will refer to various staff members as leaders, who told me how excited she was that this was my dream and said that what she suggested was to volunteer as much as possible and basically create a position for myself to make myself indispensable. She offered to have me come in during the week and shadow her and eventually take on more responsibilities. I did exactly that. I was coming into the office through the week. I started leading vocal rehearsals and helping to plan services. Eventually, I was offered a part-time position at the church. I continued to volunteer above these paid hours, and my role, as a result, continued to grow. I was given multiple raises and promotions, with the pastor telling me that he loved my servant heart and my commitment to the church and its mission. Just really nice things. And that they wanted to recognize the time I was giving, that kind of thing. I absolutely loved my job. I loved volunteering with the music team and as a leader at FCS, which is the student ministry. I loved the people. I loved the people so much. I had such purpose and finally felt like I was doing exactly what God had made me to do. Then I still don't know what prompted this change. A leader told me that she was concerned with the amount of time I was spending at the church. This was weird, since it was exactly what she had told me to do. Eventually, she convinced another leader that it was a problem. I was pulled into meetings with them asking about my time spent at the church. Initially, I was just thrown off and confused, but I just thought, okay, well, why would they be concerned? I had open conversations where I would say, I think maybe it seems odd because I'm in such a different phase of life than both of you, and I have significantly more time than you do. I'm single and don't have children. They are both married with kids. I was trying to see things from their perspective, and I thought maybe it seems like a lot because if they were volunteering outside of their paid hours, they would be neglecting other important things in their lives. I said that I think they might not comprehend just how much free time I have, and that using a chunk of my free time to do kingdom building work was something that was really great and that I appreciated their concern, but it wasn't necessary. They disagreed. Then the conversation got really weird. They said that I was obviously trying to get the church to fill something in my life that it wasn't meant to. I wasn't really sure what that meant, but it started to feel like it was the fact that I was single that was the problem. Like this husband-sized hole is what I was trying to fill. I don't know. The meeting started to become accusatory and things started to be said about me not being healthy. And as a result, I started to feel really defensive. I was trying to have open conversations, but it became more like they decided something was unhealthy, and if I disagreed, they said it just proved their point. When I would speak, I would try to clearly communicate my point of view, and it was like I was speaking another language. They told me that I didn't make any sense, and I started to feel like I was crazy. Then they decided that I needed to get therapy and figure out why I was so unhealthily attached to the church. This therapy was meeting with a woman that they chose who attended the church and wasn't even a therapist. I expressed that this made me really uncomfortable and questioned if it was something I could say no to. I was told that if I wanted to continue working there, I had to do it. I attended many meetings with this woman where I was forced to talk about my mental health. I had to list my hobbies and clarify which ones were connected to the church and which ones weren't. I had to say who I did them with and clarify if they were people who attended the church. Even if it was something like a friend and me going rollerblading together, if it was a friend who went to the church, they said it was still connected to the church and contributed to my unhealthy attachment. I was suddenly having to defend every aspect of my life, and I was constantly being told that what I was saying didn't make sense, that I wasn't normal, and that I was unwell. Even while all of this was happening and these two leaders were telling me I was unhealthy, I was still getting raises and being praised by the pastor for how much I was giving the church. I can't explain the roller coaster my heart and mind were being put through by those very conflicting messages. On the one hand, there was all of this stuff happening that felt wrong and invasive and gross. On the other hand, I loved my job and my volunteer positions, and I felt like they were bigger than me, like they mattered, and I had to do what I was told to keep them. So I did. The leader gave me a schedule of when I was allowed to be at the church, when and how much I was allowed to volunteer, and when I was allowed to fulfill my paid hours. I followed this schedule. I was told that it wouldn't be enforced when getting ready for Christmas in the Forest City, and that they would use me however much I was willing when preparing for it. So when Christmas came around, I was back in the church whenever they wanted me, which was a lot. I loved it, so I didn't think much of the switch. However, looking back, if that schedule was in place over concern for my mental health, it's curious that those concerns went away when they needed the extra help for such a big event. I had a lead at Christmas, then we had a week off between Christmas and New Year's, and I was scheduled for the first Sunday of the new year. I led the vocal team that Sunday and sang during the services. Then I came into work on Monday, and the leader told me I needed to pack my things and go. I had no idea what was happening. The reason given was that our working relationship and friendship was deteriorating, nothing else. She said that she knew I would have questions and she would answer them, but not that day. I had to go downstairs to a staff member to get info about my severance. I was in absolute shock. The leader left. I was crying. I went down to the staff member who was going to give me the information about my severance and said, I don't even know what's happening. She said that it was the boundary issues that they had spoken to me about. I said I didn't understand, as I had been following the schedule given to me at that point for months and had even been told that everything was good and on the right track about a month earlier. She had no explanation, no other explanation. I asked if I could speak to the pastor and was told he would not speak to me. So the next day I asked the leader if I could get my questions answered, and she said she thought that we should actually wait until the next week. I was at home without a job to go to, crying all day, every day in bed, completely confused about what was happening. But she said a week. The end of the next week came and I reached out. She then said that she thought we should wait 3 months and check in again, still without giving me any explanation. And keep in mind, I was also not allowed to volunteer during this time. I was just confused. I had no idea what was going on, and now you're telling me to just sit in this for 3 months. Of course, I was devastated and confused about my job loss, but it was so much more than that. I was no longer going to be scheduled for the volunteer teams. I was feeling kicked out of the church altogether. I reached out to other leaders, asking someone to get involved, that what was happening was not okay and I needed an intercessor. I just was like, am I seriously losing my place on the music team and as a youth leader as well? I mean, really, my place in the church entirely. The response I continued to get was, not my backpack. Basically, it wasn't their responsibility, so they weren't going to carry it or get involved. One pastor told me to just go heal somewhere else. I was severely depressed. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I tried to meet with any of the leaders and was denied over and over. Overnight, I lost my job, people I thought were like family, my volunteer positions, my kids at youth, the church I went to, everything. And I told nobody. I didn't want to poison the well. I wanted to clear up whatever was going on that was clearly a misunderstanding and not drag other people into it. Not my friends, not my family, nobody. But after months of trying to reach out to leaders and actually go through a biblical process of reconciliation, I finally confided in 2 friends. Matthew 18 says to go to the person first, but they refused to meet with me. Next is to bring a few others with you. So I couldn't be in the room because they wouldn't meet with me, but these 2 friends who were volunteers of the music team at the time went on my behalf. The leader told the one that she had Googled things about me and come up with a diagnosis which she then shared with him and told him to be careful of me. She indicated to him that this diagnosis was the reason she fired me, this Google diagnosis. Both of the volunteers were upset with the lack of care from the leaders. Eventually, word got around and more people were reaching out to me because they had heard more of what happened. Of course, they were concerned with what they heard, and people started asking the leaders about it. But then because others involved themselves, I was accused of inciting an army to take down the church, which I didn't understand at all because I was literally trying to stay at the church and somehow heal whatever had happened that was clearly so messed up. I wanted to meet with the leaders so that the air could be cleared, and I was so sure that we would realize there had been a terrible misunderstanding somewhere. The next step in Matthew 18 is to take it to the church. I wasn't sure what that meant in a church this size, so I decided to reach out to the elders. I was going to meet with them, but then they changed their minds and said they wouldn't meet with me either. Then the rumors got worse. I wasn't just inciting an army, but I was then accused of working with Satan. Then the rumor about sexual abuse. I continued to tell people that this wasn't about sides. We should be on the same side and that it was us versus the problem. but the leaders continued to make it the church versus Carrie-Lynn. One of the friends I had confided in pointed out the numerous legal infractions in the way I had been treated, not only as an employee, but as a human being under the Human Rights Code. She said I could sue them, which I couldn't imagine doing. It reached a point where she pointed out to the leaders that I could, but told them I didn't want to and that they should realize how lucky they were that all I wanted was reconciliation. They didn't care. The next step in Matthew 18 is to treat them like pagans. So after months of failed attempts for reconciliation and conversations, I served them with a lawsuit. I can only say so much about the lawsuit, but their statement of defense and the discovery made it clear to my lawyer and me that they were sticking with the "she's mentally unwell" defense. Thankfully, I had screenshots of messages proving everything. The representative they sent lied under oath. We didn't say that. I had screenshots of them saying that. We didn't know that. I had a screenshot of them talking about it. That kind of thing. It didn't seem like they had any chance of winning this case. They tried to settle with the condition that I sign something which would prevent me from speaking about any of this. I had made it abundantly clear from the beginning that I would not take hush money. This left us at a standstill for a long time. They kept offering more money, but it always had my promised silence attached to it. I was about to set a court date, and they must have realized I wasn't kidding, that I wasn't going to sign something promising silence, and they took it out. I told my lawyer that I couldn't sign something that would prevent me from speaking because this was a matter of public safety. I didn't trust that they wouldn't do this again. They were unrepentant and refused any accountability whatsoever. And if this grooming accusation from the Google review ended up being true and a different court case came about, I needed to make sure I could testify against them. And I found out that my situation was far from a standalone instance of abuse from these leaders. As more people started hearing about me, I had more and more people reach out to me with their own stories of church hurt and or abuse at the hands of these leaders, resulting in their exits from Forest City. Some were former staff members, some former volunteers, some former attendees. I didn't even know all of them. I had complete strangers finding me on Facebook and sending me messages. My heart was so heavy. This place that I used to hold in such a high regard, filled with people I looked at like family at one point. They had hurt so many people. Some of these people took years to heal and eventually found another church to settle in, but others have never stepped foot into church again. A big thing in common with many of these exits was that if they ever had a question about the way things were done, just a question, they were told they were off mission and should go somewhere else. And they were then completely shut out by the community. It was very cult-like behavior. It's not my place to share their stories. I hope they find the strength to share them themselves so that people can hear about all of the corruption in this place and not put themselves in a position to be hurt by these so-called leaders. I myself, a year and a half later, have not been able to become part of another church. Every time that I think I should try out another church, I get physically sick and start shaking, and I end up not going. I just don't feel safe anymore. It would have been one thing if one person had done this. That would have been hard, but one person started this and turned an entire community of people I thought were friends and family against me. The gang mentality that had me basically excommunicated has messed me up. I don't trust people anymore, and I have a wall up that never used to exist. The actual therapist I chose to see after all of this said that the way they made me feel crazy, pretending that things I said didn't make sense when he told me they absolutely did, the way they claimed none of it happened, that it was textbook gaslighting. There's so much more I could say about the ways that this has messed me up, but the point of this video isn't to trauma dump. I'm praying to God for healing, but I'm far from it right now. When I try to figure out how one person could turn everyone against me, or how any of this was possible inside of a church, in my mind, it all comes down to the gang mentality. A gang made up of family members. I never thought much of the fact that the church seemed to be run by 3 families until something was wrong. And there was no safe place to bring a concern because no matter who you spoke to, you were talking about their spouse or child or sibling. On staff, there were 3 husband and wife pairings, 2 sisters, at one point 4 children and their parents. On top of that, the elder board chairperson is the brother of a leader, while another elder is the brother-in-law of a leader. There's no membership in this place, meaning nothing is voted on by the people who attend, and the staff has no accountability to them. Even the elders are handpicked, not nominated or voted in by the people, as again, there's no membership. The pastor's at the top and answers to nobody, which is just not biblical, and it's not safe. If you're still watching, something I need to make clear is that in every single instance, my own and the others who shared their stories with me, it was people that hurt or abused them, not Jesus. This is not the kind of place that Jesus would want anything to do with in its current state. Unfortunately, when abuse happens at the hands of people who claim Jesus' name, it can be really hard to distinguish where it came from, and it can often lead people to turning away from God. But God didn't do this. He loves us. He sacrificed his own son for us. He wants us to heal. And he will sit with us as we work through the trauma caused by wolves in sheep's clothing. Especially if you're dealing with church hurt and or abuse. Just hear me on this. I would love for us all to find a safe church community where we can learn about Jesus. I would love for us all to run into the arms of a Savior who loves us. But Forest City Community Church is not safe. I don't know how else to protect people. I've tried every other avenue. Social media is unfortunately the only thing left that's available to me. Warning you is all I've got to just find a real church. Lastly, if you are someone who is dealing with church hurt and or abuse, the best advice I can give to you is to stay connected to Jesus. Don't let people take you away from him. If laws have been broken, go to the police. Follow Natalie Runyon on social media. She speaks about all of this so much better than I ever could, and she's speaking from a place of healing, which is so much more encouraging than where I'm at right now. Her ministry has helped me so much over the last 1.5 years. But above all, read your Bible, pray, and look to the healer to get you through this. It doesn't mean it'll be easy, but he'll sit there with you and get you through. Just please don't stay or go where you're not safe.